Chris here from anabolicmen.com, where we teach you 100% research-backed health advice for men. So today I want to tell you about how to gain muscle and lose fat at the same time without dieting. And that sounds, it sounds kind of like a catchy fitness dude headline or whatever. But in reality, this is something that a lot of people have achieved, but they don't really know why they've achieved it. And so people call it, recomping. Instead of the traditional cutting or bulking cycle, you can recomp your body, which I'm going to talk a bit more in this video about the recomposition of mass principle, which is really what they're referring to when they say recomp. But a lot of people have achieved this, especially when they use something like intermittent fasting. If you look at lean gains, you look at Keto Body, all these people they'll see strength gains, they'll see fat loss, and they'll see muscle gain all at the same time. But a lot of people don't really understand what's happening. So I just want to shed some light on that, and then how you can use that knowledge to your advantage. So basically what's happening when you're doing an effective recomp and you're able to do it over a good amount of time is that you are optimizing your body hormonally. You're doing things, you might not be doing all the right things, but you're doing a lot of things properly that are increasing hormonal benefits in your body. So one of the best ways, basically optimal health in general, is related just directly to hormonal health. Now optimal health is, in terms of what you should focus on for optimal health, I recommend focusing on, or just breaking it down into three main categories, and this just keeps it easy to think about. So first off is training for hormonal health, and then second is hormonal health nutrition, and with the nutrition I would just lump supplementation into that. So basically what you're consuming in your body, and then third is lifestyle. So when you're able to optimize all of these and do it, by focusing on doing the right things in each of these categories to influence your hormonal health and to really balance and bring your body into a state of homeostasis with your hormones, you're going to be doing things right. So today I want to talk about the training aspect, because that's really what lends itself to the recomposition of mass principle and a concept known as morphing that I talk about in the Thor program, but that's the most effective way over the long term. This isn't some get ripped quick scheme or anything. It's just over the long term, morphing takes place when you do things right, and I'll tell you a couple of the principles to use for effective morphing or effective recomposition of mass. It takes place over a longer period of time, but you actually don't really have any need to do any sort of dieting or bulking or cutting or any of that kind of up and down stuff. And I prefer this, and I prefer teaching this because I preach balance, and I preach to people who are looking for balance. They crave the balance. They've tried the yo-yos, the up and down, the crazy training schedules or the crazy dieting, that sort of thing. And while it might work for some people in the short term, it doesn't work for most people in the long term, and people are looking for something that's more sustainable that they can do over the long term. So this is what we're going to be talking about in this video. The best way to do this for men is to focus your training on optimizing your androgens and your androgen receptor density and sensitivity. So what I mean by that is using the testosterone work principle that I talk about in Thor and Test Shock and over on anabolicmen.com. If you search for testosterone work principle, you'll probably find it. But basically it's activating as much muscle tissue as possible, doing as much work on that muscle tissue as possible in as short a period of time as possible, while keeping that work done under a stress threshold. So this is the principle. It can be represented as a formula, and I wrote the formula in the Test Shock program actually. But really what it is you're maximizing the hormonal response in your body while also maximizing the receptivity of the androgen receptors in your muscle tissue to that hormonal response. So you're kind of hitting it at both sides of the equation, which is great, because not a lot of people actually focus on the androgen receptors themselves. They just focus on trying to increase testosterone, or the vast majority of people don't even focus on that. They just kind of focus on vanity metrics They focus on if they can get abs or not at all expenses, and then they don't care about their health. Or they end up in a poorer state of health just because they're trying to pursue that vanity metric. So recomposition of mass, like I said, is basically when you allow your body the time and the necessary process to go through a morph, an effective morph. So what happens is basically the morphing requires two things in terms of your training. And this plays into optimizing your androgen receptor density and the higher androgen output with the testosterone work principle. Basically, you need two things. You need to reinforce the muscle tissue that has a lot of androgen receptors in it. So it's very dense in androgen receptors, but also muscle tissue that you can increase androgen receptor density in. So what do I mean by that? Well, your lower body has a set amount of androgen receptors in the muscle tissue. So, and there's actually quite a lot of androgen receptors in the muscle tissue. So doing explosive lower body movements, doing a lot of work on that muscle tissue will help you optimize the amount of binding of testosterone and DHT to androgen receptors in that muscle tissue. However, there's a set amount of androgen receptors in that muscle tissue. On the contrary, in your upper body, especially in your traps, your shoulder area, upper chest, upper back, you have also very dense, androgen receptor dense muscle tissue, but you can increase the density of androgen receptors in that muscle tissue by using some smart supplementation like carnitine, mucuna, forskolin, caffeine, but also by training and constantly reinforcing explosive action and hormonal output in that muscle tissue. You are going to also increase the androgen receptor density in that muscle tissue over time. So that is one of the best ways to facilitate a morphing process. And what a morphing process might look like for a standard guy. Picture the average guy who's maybe skinny fat, maybe he's like 15 to 20% body fat, has narrow shoulders, can't lift a whole lot, and basically has, shoulders about the same width as his waist. So what a morphing process for that guy would look like is basically as his shoulders increased in width and his traps also. You see a lot of guys who focus on vanity training who really have no traps, because they don't really focus on increasing the androgen receptor density in those areas, and they might even have wider shoulders, but they're just kind of flat shoulders. It looks kind of weird because they have a skinny neck. Basically, you'll see the morphing process with that guy is going to be an increase in his shoulder width and his upper body, just his stature. He's going to look, it's subtle too for a lot of guys, but they just look more powerful. They look more masculine. You'll see bigger traps develop, more rounded shoulders, bigger arms, that sort of thing, while he's decreasing the size of his waist. And you can achieve this without dieting specifically, by doing it over a long period of time, by constantly reinforcing the muscle tissue that has the ability to increase androgen receptor density in it, so that you're not only, by doing that with like explosive power movements, you're going to not only increase the testosterone output in your body, but you're going to increase your muscle tissue's receptivity to that testosterone output. But the other caveat, and I talked about this in the Thor program, is using gravity to your advantage, because that's really one of the big keys of the morphing process is gravity. So a lot of guys could sit and they could work up to, 350 pound bench or something. You'll see a lot of guys who really still have a big gut who are hitting a big bench, right? A lot of big power lifters, whatever, in the gym, they could be extremely strong, lift massive amounts of weights, get very dense up here, have big traps, big arms, and wide shoulders and everything, but they could still have a gut. So to maximize what we want to achieve here with the morphing process, by losing that fat while you're gaining the muscle, without specifically dieting, use movements that have gravity involved in them. And what I mean by that is doing things like heavy weighted dips, heavy weighted chin-ups, even weighted muscle-ups, or other kind of bar-related calisthenic things. Excuse me. But doing that over time, as you're progressing in the weight, what happens is your body is going to feed with the fuel that you're giving it, with what you're eating and the supplements that you're taking. It's going to constantly reinforce the right areas of your body to support the training, to support the increased load on that muscle tissue. And if you're using gravity, it's going to naturally want to drop the body fat in areas that aren't being supported, which in this case, for example, let's just take weighted dips, for example. Say you start at 45-pound weighted dips. Over the course of a year, you build up to 135-pound weighted dips for 5, right? Over the course of that year, what's going to happen is your body really needs to support certain areas. So to achieve that level of strength power progression, especially if you're doing it in a more explosive fashion, you're going to have really good results for this. But basically, over that period of time, what's going to happen is because you're working on it every single week, you're going to get a lot stronger. You're going to have bigger arms, you're going to have bigger shoulders, bigger upper chest. Your triceps are going to develop a lot, even your back, the lower back. But what your body doesn't need, there's this entire section of your body that is fighting against gravity. The more weight you have and the more weight you're adding to the bar, your body's naturally going to want to drop more fat to get rid of it. That is not being supported, and it's going to shuttle the nutrients into areas that need the support. So what happens, and it's a slow process. It's not some big math like 30 days to six-pack abs kind of thing. But basically, if you were to carry this out over a process of a year, and you don't need to be counting calories or macros or anything to really achieve this. I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm just saying if you're like me and you don't like to sit and be neurotic and count everything, you don't need to if you take a more of a long-term approach. But what happens is if your body is naturally going to gravitate toward supporting the areas that are reinforced and pruning the areas that are not. And you see this is kind of a principle of the human body. You see it also in the nervous system. This is how your nervous system works. This is how your brain reinforces connections and prunes other connections that aren't being reinforced. It's the recomposition of mass principle. It's a good long-term way, a good balanced way to make your body look the way you want it to look. If you want your body to look, more masculine, you want to build bigger shoulders, bigger traps, bigger arms. You want to be strong, and you want to steadily decrease your waist without having to diet or anything like that. So hopefully I explained this all in a decent way. Hopefully you understand this. I talk a lot more about it in the Thor program at thorprogram.com or over on the Anabolic Academy. You can also go over to anabolicmen.com. We have a bunch of free training articles for you to read. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you on the next video.